what I was looking, what I was thinking about is we want this quality of work. This is what we want. We don't wanna make the road thinner,
Okay.
but we want it done for, and maybe that's too simplistic, I apologize, but I just want this work done for a little bit less money. So, we can't do it that way, that's fine.
The
Well,
difference
yeah.
is, the difference, like you say, Bill, now that you're mentioning it, really is on the earth excavation, the Pavex is charging $20 a unit, 15,500, and James P is charging $40 for $31,000
And so.
on the excavating
So,
portion, so.
good catch, and I'm wondering, so if that's the case, then why is that, all I'm saying is if we wanna go with the other company, I've been told many times to sharpen my pencil, that's all I'm saying. But if that's okay
Yeah.
if we don't work that way,
Well,
just
yeah.
a thought.
And then like,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
In this case, with it being a public open bid process, we can't ask them to sharpen their
Okay.
pencil or reduce individual line items. We can look at making changes to the scope.
I get it.
And I'll tell you, I did have a conversation with the contractor today, and because I explained to him that the issue was likely to be the difference in the two bids. I asked him, I said, can you do the job for the low bid amount or for the engineer's estimate amount? He said, no, I can't. He
Okay.
said, but he said in looking at it that there were some things that they bid higher because they were uncertain about some of the requirements for the work. In particular, the things that he mentioned were the shoulder grading and the excavation. And he said things like,
And he is much higher, he's double on
we
that.
might be able to get away with doing less excavation and raising the road a little bit. We might be able to get away with doing a little bit less excavation and playing with the crown on the road a little bit, so that we don't have to export as much material off-site.
And you're not impacting quality at that point.
Right, we're not impacting quality.
You're
We're-
basically
we would
changing
be
the
making
engineer's
small-
work.
We would be making changes to the project that would impact the quantities of work that are necessary, but wouldn't impact the final quality of the project. The other things that we could do is, looking at the shoulder grading. The shoulder grading essentially is, along most of the portions of Cherry Lane and Bakeman, rather than putting in a road that has a typical crown in the middle like this, we're actually sloping the road all one direction from the homes away toward the canal or toward the ditch along Cherry Lane. And then what we have to do is on the low side of that, we have to go along and grade that shoulder so that make sure that the water doesn't then go to one side of the road and then pond, that it makes it over the shoulder and down into the ditch or down into the canal. But there are some, we can talk to the contractor about making some changes to the quantities of work that are required for that may end up reducing the price of the project.
But will we have to award the bid before we do that?
Before we sit down and look at those things, and the other thing that I just wanna mention is that's not something that's particular just to James P. I mean, you could sit down with, if you award the contract to Pavex, you could ask them for those same types of changes and additions too, so it's not something that's pertinent to just one contractor or the other.
Do you know for certain that Pavex and James P. both do the earth excavation themselves? They don't farm it out to somebody else? Because maybe that's one reason why James P. is so much higher.
I mean, they're
I'm
double,
almost wondering if maybe
Yeah.
Pavex might say, yeah, we do it all ourselves, maybe we can award that portion of it to Pavex and then cut that out of James P.'s bid. I don't know how that works, but I mean, if
Yeah.
James P. says, no, we just farm it out, well, then maybe we can go to Pavex and have them do that part of the job since they're half the price.
Yeah, I believe that both contractors were doing the excavation themselves. I'm trying to remember the list of subcontractors for each job, and I don't recall there being an excavation subcontractor. So I believe both contractors doing it themselves.
Okay.
But as far as kind of portioning out certain jobs, certain portions of the job to one company and certain to the other, I wouldn't recommend that because of the coordination issues we're likely to have between the two.
Well, I know that sometimes they work together anyway in projects. I mean,
Sometimes they
not,
do, you're
maybe not
correct.
these two companies, but a
Correct.
lot of times companies that bid against each other also work together on things. So, just throwing that out there as an option.
And just want to, I can also say this to the board, that when it comes to unit price style bids, I have seen, and I'm in no way suggesting that that's occurring here with either contractor, but I have observed in other contracts where a bidder may see what he believes to be an error in the engineer's estimate. In other words,
Yep.
I think you're off by 500 cubic yards. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna lower all of my other numbers, and I'm gonna raise my unit price on one particular item, And when you come back and say, oh boy, yeah, we missed that by 200 cubic yards, I'm getting a premium price. So that doesn't mean that either of these contractors are doing that, but one part of this whole process is sometimes just two different ways of doing things. Sometimes it is an intentional manipulation of those numbers. But clearly, since each contractor has some items that are bid higher than the others, I'm not suggesting that either one is playing that game, but variations in unit prices, from my experience, is not unique.
What about the notion of the Pavex has written us a letter, and in it they list 2, 4, 5 references. What about asking Wade Trim to go out and talk to these 5 references, find out what their experience has been, and is that a reasonable approach? I mean, we're talking about this $13,000, I think it's a reasonable conversation.
No,
know,
it's
still early in the
13,000
season,
to
too.
Ken's point, right? Which is my pet peeve on any project we do. It's always the project plus the 10%. I wish they'd just say the project is 170. Like Ken said, I think that's the game they play, right? They know that it's gonna
Well,
be
but the
more.
10% is always optional. It's optional for overruns.
You know what? Until this thing here, I bet you every project we've ever done is always 10% over. I see the checks. They're always that amount plus the 10%. They always seem to go over on something.
And
But-
it's not necessarily their fault.
Well, right.
It
that's-
could be an engineering error, it could be anything. So to me, it is what it is, you know?
That's fine, but I guess what I'll say is, this is the citizens' money here.
I get it.
So this isn't something that the township's doing, I think, you know, I don't know if I'll speak for everybody here, but I think we're all a little concerned, you know, that the citizens are gonna say, why are you charging us an extra $13,000?
Yeah,
Well,
see, and yeah,
Right, and
that-
maybe, I get what Wade Trim is saying, but I also agree with what Mr. Batante's saying. You know, I don't know if that job in Taylor had some unique things to it, that they got in trouble or whatever with that job, but there are some other communities here that they did
Sure, Payvex is still in business.
big
You know what I mean? Like,
work for,
they're gonna
right.
cherry pick people and say, call these ones that went really well.
yeah, they didn't list the city of
They didn't
Taylor
list
as one
Taylor
of
as
the
a
references.
reference.
The key here is you'd mentioned that you believe board members are worried about the 13,000. I am not worried about the
Okay,
13,000.
well, I guess I want.
Let me finish if I could. The way I look at it is this: I'm no more likely to go to my doctor and tell him that I want the cheaper medication because I know better than he does. If the doctor says this is what you're going for, you tend to take that recommendation. We have experience with James P. We have a positive reference from the county with James P. James P. has done work for us. We have the person who we pay, who ultimately the citizens are paying, because it's a special assessment, to oversee this project in Dave at Wade Trim. He's saying to us, our experience has been very poor. I don't know all the details, and I could research all those details, but to date, I haven't found that Dave has manipulated contractors' bids in an interest to try to steer work one way or another. So in my case, from where I stand, Dave and Wade Trim are the experts in this case. They've looked at this and they said, look, just based on the difference here and the caliber of the contractors as we know them, this isn't our recommendation, this is the engineer's recommendation to go with James P. Now, I could research all this, but to be honest with you, I don't know a whole heck of a lot more about Pavex than I do about James P., about the various issues that went into the city of Taylor. That's why we pay Dave. So from my perspective, this isn't about $13,000, it's about getting what you pay for. If the contractor has performed poorly, and the engineer can give me that example, I don't like paying $13,000 more, but I also hate getting halfway into a project and having 30 residents upset because the guy has walked off the job and he hasn't finished the drainage and there are other issues. So to me, that reputation, if I'm a contractor, is huge. And this isn't a parking lot, this is people's front yard, this is their driveway, this is the street they get to. So for me, I don't have a problem with the 13 grand. I don't need to go out and investigate each one of these. I can, but I feel that ultimately in the end, that's what we pay our engineer for. For the record, because I'm sure it'll be asked, I don't know anybody at Pavex, I don't know anybody at James P., but I got a letter from our engineer who says, I know it's distasteful to pay more for something, but I really recommend you're gonna be better off in the long run, you should go with these. I'm content taking that engineer's recommendation. I recognize that I'm one board member, but for me personally, I'm comfortable with a expert's recommendation to me, and I consider Dave an expert.
In that same vein, in the discussions and with the letter that David sent us, I would feel terrible for the residents to find out that we picked a bad customer or bad company, knowing it was a bad company to start with,
Against the recommendation of our engineer.
against it.
Right.
Okay, well, this is what I would say. If you have, why would you pay them if you had bad product? This is a simple road job. You already know if you're gonna get it, you just pay them $50,000 and you hold it back.
Right, but I don't wanna find myself in October and November in a battle with these people with half a road done.
Once again, I don't know what the issue is, but my guess would be in November of 2014, when the weather got quite cold quite early, and I know that because my RV froze on me and I lost a bunch of lines in my toilet and stuff, because I didn't
Didn't winterize it then,
do
yeah.
the winterization first. That's in the back of my head, is that I know that it got cold quicker in 14 than it did, or whatever time frame this was. It was what,
Yeah, it was
last year,
late
yeah.
14, late
Yeah.
2014.
But whatever the board's pleasure.
The,
I get everything that's being said too. I wish that it was like every project they did was a disaster, or
Well, I
Right.
think that's the point.
It's not.
You know, I would be more than willing to say $13,000 is a justifiable added expense if we were, if we knew that they just had a terrible the other company had a terrible, I agree with you, Mr. Supervisor, 100%. All I'm saying is, it might be interesting to find out what these other 5, references have to say, and I hear what you're saying, Mr. Witt, that these could be their only 5 good jobs they've ever done, right? I don't,
It's how people build a resume,
Well-
and the other thing that I'd add to the conversation, we didn't ask Pavex for, as far as the timeline, but James P. was very interested in getting awarded the bid quickly. They have a gap in their schedule where they're hoping to fit this in, within the next, if everything goes well, I forget the exact date, but it was rather quickly.
Yeah, I
Well,
spoke to the,
that's one of my concerns is looking at awarding a project to this other firm that still has unfinished business and a big project that's been a 2-month project that something that should have taken a few months has taken a few years. And now we're looking at awarding them another project. Well, how do we know they're gonna be on time with our project, or they're still straggling over there? Look at what's happening at Ashby Preserve, they're having all kinds of problems with, things are just not getting finished up, and things are getting damaged and dragged out. Do we wanna award this company another project when they could be down in Taylor working on that thing? We don't know. They might drag us out too. They may not show up until October for all we know. Sounds like they have a track record, so.
And I can tell you the residents are chomping at the bit to have this done. If you've ever driven down Cherry Lane, Bakeman Church,
Oh, yeah, I have.
Well, are the residents prepared? You said yourself that the estimate was 138. The low bid was 141. Now you're looking at 154. That's gonna add, I don't know how many lots are on that project, but you're looking at maybe somewhere between $500 and $1,000 more in cost that the citizens probably aren't anticipating at this point.
it's within
So they're
it's
gonna
within
get
the
the-
original estimate.
But we're also looking at a vendor that's got,
No,
we've got a recommendation from our engineer, having problems with the vendor, hasn't finished the project. The city is basically putting a lien against them. They have problems with monuments getting damaged. Do we think the low bid's gonna give us good quality too? Or do you think they're gonna cut corners wherever they can? Or would we rather pay 13,000 more and get the quality that we think we deserve and not have to deal with these problems?
but then you look at, just so the residents know what we're talking about, we're looking at the Rochester City Hall Complex, $450,000 project. MDOT, Market Street, from North Avenue through Main Street, they did the full road project through MDOT. Road Commission of Oakland County, $3.5 million road project. Woodhaven West Road intersection project, $750,000 project. So the question is that a one-off that they had trouble or not? And I don't know, quite honestly, the answer to that question. I wish I did. I don't know.
Well, the options before us, board, are really one of 3 things. We award the bid to James P., we award the bid to Pavex, or we take no action. So is there a motion on this item? We've discussed it at length. I don't know that there's anything new that we're gonna discuss.
I wish I had a definitive answer on paybacks, but make my job a lot easier.
Is there a motion this evening?
I'll make a motion to contract with James P. Contracting to conduct the paving work at a cost of $154,825, plus a 10% contingency for the Cherry Lane Lakeland Church and Mass Court SAD as recommended by the township engineer.
All right, is there support?
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Capro, support by Mr. Witt. We have discussed it at length. I don't know if there is further discussion, but I might suggest that we open up the floor for public comment.
Again, Marshall Rosquin, 27705 Ashland Avenue. It's more than just 13,000. It's 10% difference, or close to 10% difference between the two bids. And yes, definitely take the consideration of a professional when they offer their recommendation, but one issue doesn't make a trend. They probably, again, wouldn't be in business if they did everything poorly. And then you look at the list of things that they've done, and there's been no negative comment. For if there had been, I'm sure our engineer would have also heard about it. So I would encourage you not to spend the citizens' dollars, wastefully. Consider their money. This is money out of their pockets. Each dollar the board spends is money from the citizens. So please take that in consideration when you vote, because we do have means. This isn't a brain surgery. There is a means to recover or react if something is shoddy. It can be fixed. So and we do have a means of not paying them if they don't finish the work or they do horrible work. And I would presume that in any bid, we don't pay up front. That the process is that we pay based upon completion, and then adjusting a bid. We went out and got bids for an orange and an orange, and then he talks about taking a bid and modifying it to an apple. That's different. If you're going to do that, then redevelop the requirements and send it out for new bids. Table it and then send out for new bids based upon new information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Senstock, 31698 San Juan. The low bid was submitted by Pavex Corporation. Our most recent experience with Pavex is on the parking lot paving project for the city of Taylor all the way back in November 30th of 2014. That was over a year ago. Looks to me like Wade Trim's trying to get some payback here. Looks to me like they're gonna impact these people's livelihood. I don't see anything in here that says we've dealt with this company any other time but this one time. And that's our bad experience, and we're gonna recommend you don't go with them. $13,000 is a lot of money. As it was stated, it could be as much as $500 to $1,000 more per household. You know what? I've said it before, and I've said it many times. It's not your money. You don't care. That was his direct quote. He didn't care. Ken didn't care. I don't care. I don't want to do a little bit of extra work and go out and find out whether or not Pavex is qualified or not. Let's just do this. It's not my money. You listed several contracts there that they've done successfully. Has Wade Trim been involved at all with any of those contracts? Gee, so they don't know how they went. Has Wade Trim been involved? I haven't heard anybody ask it. Has Wade Trim been involved in any other contract with this company? Except the one. So they're creating an expectation or a decision based on one experience. I look at this thing and I can see right now, it's not just this company, it's also the city of Trenton. There's some issue there that's muddying this whole thing up, and you got a bunch of hard-headed people that are saying, I'm not gonna resolve this. That's what I see there. I don't see a bad contractor. I just listened to 5 contracts that he did successfully, including one right up in Mount Clemens. So, you know what? I believe you had the right suggestion. I think you need to table this and go find out some more people that, some more input on this company. And if that, failing that, if you're too lazy to do that, then you know what? There is nothing wrong with going to the whatever this, James P. contracting. He said, look, I want that contract for the lesser amount the Pavex was gonna pay for. That's how every company in this in the United States operates. Their purchasing departments do that. Why can't you do that? Yep, we want that changed. Manipulate any of those numbers you want in there as far as to make it come up to the number I want, but that's what I want. Because otherwise, I'm gonna give it to Pavex. Every single purchasing company in the world does that. But, we can't do that. We can't do that. But we're gonna listen to one item, one individual, who's probably involved intimately in negotiating this, or maybe he's not. But the fact of the matter is, you don't base anything on one item, unless you just don't care. And that appears to be the board's decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jim Watisha, 31375 North River Road. I got quite a bit of experience in road work. That's what I did for City of Roseau Engineering. And Wade Trim, whether they did their due diligence or not, is neither here nor there. I think York, you made a great thought. I thought your point was correct. It looks fishy to me. It was winter time. The city wanted to get it done quick. Now, we're talking about over 10% bid difference between the 10% runover. And you gotta have the 10% runover. Anytime you do any work underground, you don't know what you're gonna run into. You cannot have exact numbers. But I don't believe you guys are doing your due diligence without looking into this. Just one incident that he did bad. I don't believe, just what I've heard what happened, I don't believe it's the contractor's fault. He's probably not doing that restoration, Mr. Verkes, because they probably have other issues. And that's just my guess, as much as your guess why he didn't do it. I believe it's your job to do the best for the citizens here of Harrison Township. And by going for the high bidder, you're not doing that. You gotta do your due diligence. Mr. York, you're right. Bill, you're correct too. You gotta go out there and do a little more investigation. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Bardell, 19-year resident, taxpayer, new kid on the block. What I want to say is, Mr. Newmer, you had me until you said that your contractor that's going to be awarded has a little lull in their schedule. Okay? The city of Taylor played cat and mouse. They knew that they couldn't lay asphalt in this funny weather. They could have had the employers, the golfers, whatever, park on the grass, put a temporary bridge in, park in the grass. If it was a municipal golf course, it was a county building or an office, you park on the grass, you close it off, you put a temporary bridge. They knew laying asphalt that late in the season was risky. Now, this contractor's taking the hit, is the fall guy. So, I'm gonna say that Mr. York and Mr. Bentoni, you guys are right on this. Do some more investigation, and these no-bid contracts, they gotta stop in this township. It's got to stop. This is madness. This contractor is getting the bad, rotten end of the stick because the city of Taylor knew they couldn't pour asphalt that late in the season. And I don't know any contractor that's gonna come out after you get them the job. You're not gonna see them for 3 weeks. They have to schedule their people. You're gonna wait 3 weeks at least. So, do the right thing. 13,000 is 13,000. You had me, but until you said your contractor had a lull in their schedule. Something fishy in Denmark. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. There were a couple of different comments. One resident said, or asked that we do not spend citizens' dollars wastefully. I don't believe if you choose to vote for what you perceive to be a higher quality contractor with the data before us, that it's wasteful. If I believed, myself anyways, that I was hiring someone that was just as good as the other, I wouldn't suggest that I'd pay for more, but I do believe reputation plays a role here. And it is true, the resident said, these issues, problems can be fixed or recovered, we can withhold money. The problem is that we know of one of our municipal peers that's still in that process, and regardless of what happens, I don't wanna be in that case. We do know James P. did work for us, we didn't have a problem. We had contractual changes on the run, was doing a parking lot. We didn't run into a problem with them, so we know that we didn't find ourselves stuck. Nobody here knows and can decisively say that one contractor did do a great job and the other contractor do a poor job. And truly, the exact opposite could occur. You could, in good faith, try to choose who you believe to be the best contractor. There could be problems, whether it happens to be that they've got a fellow that was working for them and he screwed up or God knows what. The problem is that we're forced to make a decision based on the data that we have, and that's what we have before us. I feel confident that I can go out and say that if we do this vote, it should be a roll call vote, and we're gonna see probably a pretty mixed set of results, because it is a difficult decision. This is not an easy, clear thing. Why would you pay more than the low bidder? Well, we've only got 2 contractors that bid for it, so our opportunity to go out and get other bids is pretty limited, pretty difficult here. Even though we went out and physically solicited bidders, only 2 of them responded. Of the 2, we have a limited data set of information about them. I'm sure that if we did enough research, we'd find people who say, well, Pavex is pretty good. And likewise, I'm sure there's somebody out there that says, yeah, I really wasn't happy with something James P. did. What I can say is we've done work with James P., the work was satisfactory. The difference is not 10%, it is less than 10%, but it is a difference of money. And it isn't $1,000 per home, because there are certainly more than 13 people in this SAD. But it is a significant difference. But to the extent that we can, this is a function of, I don't believe, regardless of how any of my board members or how I vote, this isn't a function of me making a decision to be lazy or wasteful. It's making a decision the same way that I would if it were my home and it were a new roof or a new driveway, trying to choose what contractor I believe is gonna do the best. If the guy just did work next door and my neighbor had nothing but troubles on the roof, I'm probably not hiring that guy to do the roof. It could be a fluke, and the guy could otherwise do a great job. But if that's what I encountered, his reputation is gonna stick to the home next door. To me, that's what we have here. But I don't begrudge any board member or any resident for saying, look, you should go with a low bidder. I respect that. It's not an easy decision, so.
I have a question. Dave, have you worked with Pavex since 2014?
We've done the one project with Pavex. That project is, and you're right, it was in 2014. The reason that's pertinent is the contract's still open, they haven't finished it. We're still working with them, we're still trying to resolve.
So you don't want to award them another contract if you're having problems with this one,
Well,
right? I mean, is
well,
that
no,
fair to say?
no, and I'm trying to be very careful here, because I'm not trying to disparage somebody.
You got,
What-
you're
what
working
I-
on glass, I
What
get
I'm, what
it.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to do, what I'm trying to do is to convey to the board the facts of the situation as I know them, to help you make a good decision.
Right.
And I'm not trying to ruin somebody's reputation, I'm not trying to disparage somebody. That's why I'm telling you the firsthand information that Wade Trim has as a company in our relationship with both of these contractors. So,
Mr.
Were you
Supervisor,
involved in
I don't,
any of the other projects that they're putting on their resume as positive ones?
I've not seen any of those projects.
Okay.
No,
And
they
that's
have-
why I'm just
they have
asking those two
engineering
questions
firms on there,
because,
Dave.
I'm sorry?
They listed the engineering firms for those.
Oh, okay. But I wasn't sure if he was involved, though.
No,
Maybe he was.
I've not been.
No, no, fair enough.
Mr. Supervisor, I don't think for one moment that anybody wants to waste $13,000 on this board, absolutely not.
Right.
And I, just to be clear about that.
Yep.
What I wonder is, you know, and I don't know if it can be done in 2 weeks, you know, could we ask Wade Trim to call these other references and report back to us at our next meeting? And if Wade Trim, after talking to the references and their firms, is still convinced that Pavex would present a problem, then that's more information. Now, I don't know if that can be done in 2 weeks. I don't know if it's gonna cause a project problem to wait the 2 weeks. But, you know, I just think it could bring us more data from which we could make a considered decision.
Well,
That's
let's,
all.
so to that vein, you brought up two questions. Number one, from a season issue, we have a choice to make a decision June 13 or a decision June 27. In neither case do we anticipate that would jeopardize the timeline associated with this project. Do you believe so?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the second thing is again, from a timeline, in terms of the special assessment district process, is there something that you know that binds us to making a decision tonight?
No, there's no need to make a decision tonight,
Right.
and, you know, as long as the contractor is responsive, we would still be able to bill the cost of the project out this year.
Right. So my instincts say that the research that we're gonna do will probably find, to the extent that we can, exactly what we know already. The people on the list that have good references, if I were to call each of those from Pavex, if they put it down, they're probably gonna speak positively about the firm. Likewise, the same thing would go with James P., I think also. So I don't know that, for me personally, 2 more weeks is gonna change my opinion, but either way, that's the option before us. Certainly the issue, the motion that we have on the table, is the proposed motion, and shortly we should take a vote on that. But at least, before we vote, we should understand that the 2 weeks would not cause any legal problem or construction delay problems.
Okay.
Well, I would say something even more simpler than that. Like Mr. Newmer said, there's 2 sides to every story. What I would do is get on the phone with Mr. Morrison, who says he can be reached 24/7 at this number, and find out what their side of the story is. Because obviously there's 2 sides to the story, and, you know, maybe he can shine some light on why he didn't fix the monument so far. Why, I don't know the answer. Maybe it turns out that they're a bad contractor. I don't know the answer to that question. Right? I mean, it's all speculation for us at this point, right?
Right. Well, I remember the problems we went through with phase 1 of the bike path, and
That was
certainly,
engineering.
well, and certainly neither of these contractors were the contractor that was involved. But what I remember is having to go back and do tens of thousands of dollars worth of work because, a scope of work wasn't done well, and things were bad.
What I remember from that project is not Wade Trim, but there was a different engineering firm. They screwed up the engineering and we had to pay $55,000 to fix it.
Well, there was a combination of engineering, but there was also some work in the field that wasn't done properly. And my point is that I know that after the fact, sometimes the process available to fix things becomes a whole lot more than the 10%. But again, I recognize this is a difficult decision. I feel like with all due respect, we've talked it out pretty good. I think everybody's had a chance to.
I wish we had an
Weigh in.
answer. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if James P. Payback. I honestly, at this point, I don't know.
I think the answer is just a vote.
I think, is there new information or
No.
debate, then maybe it would be appropriate that we do take a vote. We've got a motion by Mr.
Obviously,
Cap.
a roll call.
Yep, I mentioned that, yep. Motion by Mr. Capital, support by Mr. Witt to contract with James P. Contracting to conduct the paving work at a cost of $154,825, plus a 10% contingency for the Cherry Lane, Bakeman Church, and Mast Court SAD as recommended by the township engineer. Mr. Witt?
Mr. Capro?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Batanti?
No.
Mr. Brado?
No.
Mr. Tominello?
No.
Mr. York?
No.
Mr. Verkast?
Yes. Motion fails. Is there another motion?
Let me try this.
All right.
I would suggest, make a motion that we charge Wade Trim with the task of contacting the references that were listed by Pavex and attempt to apply their professional analysis to the comments that they've gotten regarding, you know, Pavex's reputation on the, that's too long of a motion. I guess.
No, that's.
You know,
I
I don't
think-
know that we want Wade Trim, they have a problem with that.
No, I think we want the 3 full-time officials
Yeah, I wanna
somehow
call them.
involved in that conversation,
I think
maybe
we
with
need to
Wade
call them.
Trim,
Right, so
because
just change it to the.
we don't want it,
Right.
I think we need to
if we
call
think
them.
it's slanted one direction, we don't want the person
Okay.
that we think is slanting it in one direction.
Right,
I think-
plus, and with all due respect,
I don't
is,
particularly agree with that, but
right, what, yeah,
potentially that's it.
right, I don't know that I wanna hang this on Wade Trim.
I
Okay.
agree.
Right.
yeah.
So.
So you
the-
get my point, I
Right.
mean, you know.
Yep, yeah,
So-
the difficult thing is that, you know, the flip side of this is that, the 3 full-time officials are in a position to say, okay, well, I'm gonna, you know, what process do you follow? How do you go about this? Or what do you do so that when you come back, you say, well, clearly you'd voted yes anyway, so you were just out to get, it's
so why
difficult
doesn't
for
he
me, hang on, it's difficult for me as a board member to say that I'm gonna come back with a recommendation.
So-
Because I've already kind of, I mean, the 3 full-timers have already acted,
Right, so
so.
why don't we have the full-timers in addition to Wade Trim? I just
No, I
we
think
need-
this is what's best. Let me just suggest
Yes,
this.
go ahead.
There is no motion here, right? I think that we should talk about this in 2 weeks. And every board member should be prepared to give their answer, not the 3 full-timers did some research. You wanna do some research? Make some phone calls. You wanna do some research? Make some phone calls. Each of these contractors can be reached, and you can call any city, you can call the city of Taylor. If you're not sure who to call, you can call Dave. We do need to address this. I have no problem, which is why I asked. There really is no impact to delay this 2 weeks. But to say that Dave should do the homework, or to say that Ken and Darren and Adam should do the homework, I think is distorted, because when Ken comes back and gives a report, I've got a board member saying, well, sure, you know, you only confirmed what you were looking for. We got 7 board members that need to do their homework and do whatever they do, so that 2 weeks from now, when we talk about this, everybody's prepared to say, I've done my informed due diligence.
It wouldn't be my way of suggesting how we get that done. It would seem to me that we need a professional asking the questions, but if that's the board's pleasure, I'll make the calls myself. I don't know why we would want 7 people making all.
The,
of
the
it.
reason
the
is,
thing is
why do I have undue influence to tell you, I looked into it, Team A is good and Team B stinks? Well, now you say, well, my whole point is that that's not how, we're equals here. All 7 of us are equals. If we wanna do research, I was content to vote. I was comfortable with the engineer's recommendation. If there are people who here say, we shouldn't vote just yet, we need 2 weeks to decide, my point is that it shouldn't be me to convince you which way to go. It shouldn't be Dave to convince you. It should be you to make that decision for yourself. That's my whole point. I'm not in a position to want to tell you how to vote 2 weeks from now.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make a motion to table the contract selection.
Just for whatever it's worth, there is no, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's no need for
No,
a
okay.
motion.
So we don't even have to table it?
Yeah,
We can
we-
table it and then it'll
We're gonna
directly
bring
come
it
back
back
at
at
the
the
next
next
meeting.
meeting, right?
So,
It's a
so
defined
let me
action.
go ahead with the motion
Okay.
to
All right.
table the selection of the contractor to perform the work on the Cherry Lane, Bakeman, Church and Mass Court SAD, to allow the board to, perform individual, research,
I think we just
into
say
the-
We'll just table it to
Okay,
Just
that's
December
fine.
7th.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
we don't have to
I'm
direct the
good.
board to do
I'll
that.
support tabling it to the next meeting.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Tominello, with support by Mr. York. We've just talked about it quite a bit. Board, are you content without discussion? All right, we'll open up the floor for public comment.
Okay, I think this is a great idea. Everybody's got a phone. Everybody call those references, and then at 6:30, next board meeting, we have our board foreman, and everyone talks about it. Good idea. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Marshall Rosquin. Mr. Batoni, as an elected trustee, you're representing people, and your vote is based upon knowledge. It isn't the responsibility of just Mr. Verkest or Adam or Darren to contact them and give you their suggestions. You need to get the input of both the residents and when there's a topic that the residents aren't gonna be experts on, that you're voting to spend their money on, I'd like to see it, the initiative to be educated on that information by discussing and interviewing both Pavex, perhaps the city of Taylor, and John P. That's what I wanted to offer up, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment, move back to board comment. I think it's certainly worth noting that all 7 of us don't have to go about our own individual ways. So for example, if any sub-quantity of board members, less than 4, said, hey, why don't we all sit down and agree to call this guy, that guy, and line up a bunch of numbers and sit down and do that, I don't have a problem with that. So if you know, 2 other board members say, hey, where's a day and a time that we can all sit down in the next week and make some phone calls, I'm good with that. You know, but I think that in the end, we should, what I don't want is I don't want to be in a position where any one of us say, well, I checked this all out and here's what I do. I have less of a problem when we have a third-party paid individual who's a professional to do that. But if we're gonna pay that guy to do it, and, you know, some of these things really, these are judgment calls. If I call somebody in the city of Taylor, the guy is gonna tear his or her opinion of what occurred. I don't have to be an engineer to hear those comments. So we've got some references here, we've got information, you know, we'll do the research best we can.
Mr. Supervisor, just, want to make a comment. I want to assure the residents that I pride myself in doing my due diligence.
Sure.
And in asking questions and being prepared. Just, so I appreciate the residents' suggestion, but I want people to understand that that's what I've done since I've been on this board, and I do it with great, respect for the community, and I feel that I'm prepared and do my due diligence.
And I feel confident as well.
And
I
the
respect that.
frustrating thing about that though is we've had this for 6 days. I didn't get a phone call saying, hey, your recommendation was this, Adam. Dave, did you get any phone calls saying, hey, what's your recommendation? Why are you going for the higher one? Did you call anybody else? I mean, all of a sudden, I know sometimes we have agenda items where we have, you know, an ambiguous outcome, where we have some discussion, where we're gonna need to figure out what the end is. So, I mean, I'm okay with people taking their time and figuring it out, but we had 6 days since Dave's recommendation. So, I mean, I came here ready. I didn't need to table it.
I actually was prepared to award the bid to the higher of the 2, but after the discussion and after listening to some things and asking some questions myself, I determined that, now, you know what, now I'm not prepared to do that. So, I was, but now I'm not. So, sometimes that's why we have an open forum meeting. So that's what happens sometimes. You net out a different result. And it's,
I don't know that we can
Mr.
vote
York,
on it.
we can. Mr. York left the meeting for.
I think
for
he may be
phone.
talking to that gentleman. I mean, if that matters to you.
And for whatever
It
it's
doesn't
worth,
matter to me.
I suppose it isn't gonna matter.
No.
I don't
No,
think
it's
it
not.
will. So we've got a motion to table this by Mr. Tominello, although Mr. York seconded that, I guess we should.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The motion belongs to the board at this point.
Sure. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Good. All right, we'll talk about it in 2 weeks. Next on our agenda, item G1. Board members, we've received an application for reappointment from Ms. Linda Verschuren for the Beautification Commission. Ms. Verschuren has been a valuable member of the commission. I'd recommend her reappointment to the Beautification Commission for a 2-year term to expire March 26, 2018.
Motion to reappoint Ms. Linda Verschuren to the Beautification Commission for a 2-year term to expire March 26, 2018.
Support.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt, with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, next on our agenda, item H1. Board members, attached in your board packet is the municipal credit and community credit contract for fiscal year 2017 between SMART and the Charter Township of Harrison, along with the necessary backup material to receive these funds. These funds or credits help to fund our Dial-A-Ride shopping, shuttle, and summer shuttle services. To receive our credits, the board must approve the signing of the contract. For fiscal year 2017, we anticipate the receipt of $24,168 in municipal credits and $66,671 in community credits, maintaining the same funding levels as fiscal year 2015 and fiscal year 2016. I recommend a motion to approve the Smart Municipal Credit and Community Credit Contract for fiscal year 2017 as presented. Is there discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Smart Municipal Credit and Community Credit Contract for fiscal year 2017 as presented.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Brado with support by Mr. Batanti. Discussion, board members. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next, item H2 deals with similar subject. Board members, our summer shuttle coordinator would like to hire two individuals, Ms. Dawn Galdis and Ms. Catherine Stroop, as part-time smart bus drivers for our shuttle service. Both Ms. Galdis and Ms. Stroop currently drive for L'Anse Creuse Public Schools. They hold their CDL Class B certification. The addition of these two individuals will give us more flexibility in scheduling time for the summer shuttle drivers. So based on their qualifications, we would recommend to hire these two individuals at the current hourly rate with no benefits.
Make a motion to hire Ms. Dawn Galdis, I don't know how to pronounce it, Galdis, and Ms. Catherine Stroop as part-time drivers for the Smart Bus at a rate of $11 per hour with no benefits.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Caprell. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on our agenda, item H3. Board members, as you know, we've interviewed several candidates for the administrative clerk position in the Water and Sewer Department. That position is currently open. Based on 2 rounds of interviews, as well as a thorough look at other department operations that may have resulted in a potential for displacement of employees or reallocation, we are bringing forward a recommendation. We interviewed several individuals and certainly had quite a few in the final pool, but ultimately Ms. Nicole Agibas is the person who we believe to be the most qualified for the position. And so the recommendation is to hire Ms. Nicole Gibas at a cost of $17.80 an hour, which is the beginning position per the contract, plus benefits as defined in the ASME collective bargaining agreement. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to hire Ms. Nicole Gibas for the position of administrative clerk in the Water and Sewer Department at a rate of $17.80 per hour, plus benefits as defined in the ASME collective bargaining agreement, subject to the completion of a successful 90-day probationary period.
Support.
All right. Got a motion by Mr. Batanti with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Next on the agenda, item H4. Board members, we have received a request from the Huron-Clinton Metropolitan Authority and the Lake St. Clair Metro Park regarding our noise ordinance. In order to avoid operating mowing and maintenance equipment near park visitors, as well as to avoid cutting during the hottest hours of the summer days, they begin their maintenance operations at approximately 6:30 a.m. during the summer months. They have done this for several years, but they are asking that we officially give them the permission to begin work prior to 7:30 a.m., which is the time specified currently in our ordinance for construction equipment. Mr. Huth indicated that we can do this by board action. It does not require an ordinance revision. And the specific section is 34-67, section 12. I will give you a little bit more history on this. This original request did come from the director for HCMA, basically their top person. They have a board of directors, but this is the individual that manages the entire HCMA operation. And the initial request is, can you exempt us from this? We've never operated under that rule, but the longer answer is a resident had called and made several complaints to the police department. Police department said, look, guys, this is the ordinance, you gotta follow the ordinance. So I met with that resident, and had a lengthy conversation with the resident, over what the concern was. And I can certainly see both sides. HCMA has a need to be out and performing the work. I imagine if you were there with your family, for a summer picnic, you wouldn't want a mower going by, in the middle of the day, or fresh cut grass or whatever. The flip side of that is I can also understand that if they're out there, they start at 6 a.m., their maintenance crew, and, by 6:15, 6:20, they're probably out with a piece of equipment, and they're generating noise, and being that there are a number of residents and homeowners that are right across the Black Creek and the bay that is there, sound can carry, and, depending on what you're doing, or the time of day that you're out, and, what time you start for work and so forth, that could be a disturbance. So, what I am asking this board to do isn't take an official act. What I've asked both the resident, and I've only had one complaint on this, but it doesn't matter, one complaint is sufficient, but I've asked the resident as well as the operations personnel at Lake St. Clair Metro Park to fix the problem, and that problem is this. The park's a pretty big place. There's a lot of other areas you can mow prior to 7:30 that don't create a disturbance whatsoever. So that's number one. And the park personnel have always been cooperative, and they said they didn't see a problem with that. There's two pieces of equipment. One is literally a mower. The second is probably some sort of a vehicle-mounted turbine-type vacuum, where they basically can just pick up trash. But it's a high winding sound. So I'd said, look, just stay out of the marina area, or basically along the river's edge, the Black Creek's edge, prior to 7:30. If you don't, I'm gonna get complaints. And I told the resident, you don't need to call the police department, but call us, because we can rescind this if the complaints persist. So I'm trying to find peace between a reasonable request from a resident, but also a reasonable request from a municipal partner, in the sense that they'd like to be out and working prior to 7:30. So the official act is to exempt the Metro Park from our noise ordinance, but clearly not exempt them from being respectful to the residents. And knowing a number of calls that this single resident generated, I have no reason to believe that if the noise continues, we won't hear about it, in which case I told them, we'll bring it back to HCMA and say, you guys gotta fix this problem, because ultimately the purpose of the ordinance is to avoid disturbing the peace of our residents. The problem is that in the meantime, they're ultimately operating in a way that's not in accordance with our ordinance, and they've done so historically for many years. We've had one complaint, so we're trying to address that. And part of it is to ultimately make official what they've been doing for undoubtedly decades. Discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to exempt HCMA Lake St. Clair Metro Park from the 7:30 a.m. start time in our noise ordinance, section 37-6712, within the park boundaries and in the center median of Metro Parkway.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
All right.
Why don't you amend your motion and exclude the creek area? Right? If that's the solution, which it sounds to me.
Right.
Well,
But it's
then
a
we went
difficult
on that.
definition.
Where is the creek? How do so imagine that you're the cop
I
that
don't
gets
wanna-
that call,
right,
and I
right,
see.
Right, so obviously this bothers a resident, right?
Correct.
And the reason that we have the 7:30, obviously, is so people aren't,
Disturbed.
continually, I don't think it's like a neighbor mowing a lawn, it's probably more like the contractors and that, they go out there and start banging, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one contractor, my neighbor was putting a new sidewalk in on the side of the house there, and my bedroom's right there, and I'd been up all night, I was up for 27 hours, and got home and fell asleep at 5 o'clock, and at 5:15, heard kabang, 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 somebody pounding in rebar, like 3 feet from me. So I mean, that's why we have those rules.
Sure.
I guess what I would say, Mr. York, is that I trusted Mr. Verkest's explanation and agreement with the beach will work.
Right,
Yeah,
this
well,
is,
what I
this
don't
is
want, you
resident
know,
driven.
sometimes you get baited into this, right? So we say, go ahead, and then all of a sudden it's, oh, look what I got now I can go do it.
So
right?
2 weeks
We
from now, I
we
just
can
rescind it. That's
We
right.
always
Rescind it
have the
on June
chance to
27th.
rescind it.
Right, we can be
It'll
back.
always be
In all fairness, I truly have not encountered a relationship with HCMA where they're gonna say, aha, I got you. I mean, we've had a pretty good working relationship with them, and, you know, nobody balked about this, but what they said was, I mean, really, the director is a prior law enforcement official, so his point is that I need something that allows me to do this, and, you know, law and order guy, you know, you've got an ordinance, and it's difficult to enforce. The reality is, you know, I need this exemption, but I will respect the residents' wishes, and I truly believe that if they don't, we'll hear it. I gave the gal my number, I said, don't hesitate to call me if you see it or if you find it disturbing, we'll fine tune it, and I have every reason to believe that they will do just that.
So, Mr. Supervisor, just one question.
Yeah.
Did you communicate the intent to the resident?
Yes.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
he's aware of it, so he knows.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that I described this action to the resident, and they were content with the solution,
Thank you.
so. And I mean,
That's different.
you look at that creek, I can't tell you the number of homes, but there are dozens, if
There's a
not,
lot.
you know, maybe 100 homes that are across there. I've heard one complaint. That doesn't minimize the complaint, it's a legitimate complaint, so we're doing what we can to
What
address it and still allowing them to get their work done.
You know what happens, oh, I'm
If
sorry.
you heard the vacuum machine going in a echoey area,
Right.
sure, it could,
Yeah.
it sounds pretty loud.
It could be the position of your home, it could be the, you know, the fact that your bedroom window happens to face directly across that bay. I can't get into the acoustics, but it's a reasonable request, so.
Yep.
I guess it'd be that person's running the second shift and they're getting home, they can't sleep.
No, I investigated that too. That wasn't it, but it
But
doesn't,
they have a right to enjoy their home.
No question
right,
about
in
it.
peace and quiet. you know?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, we have a motion by Mr. Batanti with support by Mr. Capral to exempt Lake St. Clair Metro Park from the 7:30 a.m. start time in our noise ordinance, section 34-67, subset 12, within the park boundaries and in the center median of Metro Parkway. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next under our agenda is item I, which is the public and board comment section. So anyone who has any public comments, the floor is open. They can be of any nature. We ask that you try to limit them to 5 minutes in length.
William Bardell, I got a little, some love letters here for you guys. How many did I get? Did I get 7?
Oh, that's good. We're good.
Six?
I think we get the point.
Okay, okay,
Picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
okay. William Bardell, 19-year resident, new kid on the block. Last week, a 50-year resident and war veteran called me, and he was very concerned about not just this picture here of the tall grass, but there was 8 other properties on different streets. Now, I'm not gonna mention what street that is or anything like that. But had I given you guys more pictures, I would have probably spent me $40 on ink. So you got a nice color picture there. As you look at this picture with the tall grass, few things might be going through your mind. One could be, boy, I'm glad I didn't vote for Landscape Services and Company, or man, I shouldn't have voted to have Landscape Services do this job. Or you might be looking at that sheet there and saying, is that a ruler or is that a yardstick? Or a little song by Archie Bell and the Drells called Tighten Up. Might be going through your head. You need to tighten this up. But whatever it is, and by the way, that is a yardstick. And when you guys contracted Land Services, Landscape Services and Company, it was supposed to be a 2-day turnaround for them to tag and cut. That's just one property. I'm not gonna say what street that's on. That's in this area. And there was 8 others. This is why I talk about no bid contracts. This is a pet peeve of mine. Why do we bid contracts? We bid contracts for competition. What does competition make? It makes for a better product. Now, I'm not gonna keep kicking a dead horse. I'm gonna say with Archie Bell and the Drells, the song, Tighten It Up. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Tighten it up, clean it up. You need to have more than a 37-day turnaround on this sort of stuff. The other thing I want to talk about is, you might have seen the little photo op that Mr. Snyder had out on Lake St. Clair with Candace Miller and Mark Hackle, and his supposed 30-year plan. Well, nothing in Mr. Snyder's plan, and nobody in our Michigan legislature put together a plan or formed a committee to give incentives for the 12 town drains to separate the sewage. Okay? This 30-year plan that Mr. Snyder's talking about, this is the same guy that poisoned the children of Flint because he felt that people didn't come first. When you don't put people first, this is what happens. So, Mr. Snyder's all aboard for a 30-year water plan is nothing but smoke and mirrors. If Mr. Snyder wanted to do something to help our Lake St. Clair, he would put together a bipartisan panel of Michigan legislatures and put together incentives for municipalities to separate the sewage water from their water overflows. So I don't know if you read Mr. Snyder's plan, but it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all generic stuff. It's all stuff that's already been done. And that, with that being said, I'd like to just kind of give you a brief idea in 2016 what's been happening. Our friends at the Martin Retention Basin gave us an early Father's Day present on March 23rd, 2016, from 2:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. They dumped 48.5 million gallons of sewage into our wonderful lake. Just an example, I'll be quick here, I'll finish up real quick. And on just the latest thing is our Macomb Interceptor, they dumped 5,923 gallons on us. The and that was on 5/11/2016. The Martin Retention Basin on 3/31/16 dumped 16 million gallons on our wonderful lake. I would like to invite everybody to please check out SaveLakeSt.Clair.org or join everybody on Save Lake St. Clair on Facebook, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. Board members?
We're paying that company $880 a week to drive around So hopefully we'll get a resolution. If you could just have Andrew send everybody an email on,
I'll definitely look into it.
cause
Yep.
I don't know the answer. So, maybe.
All right. Any other board comment? Hearing none, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries, meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.
Was New Girl gonna start